Like there's something that happened there. And to me, we do this invite not just by our actions, but we actually open our mouth and invite somebody in. Paul tried to describe this in Romans 10:14. He said this way. He said, but how can they call on him to save them unless they believe in him? So he's talking about how we do this whole discipleship thing. How do we get people in this seat? And he's going, how do we get them to actually believe? He's going, how can they call on him to save them unless they believe in him? And how can they believe in him if they've never heard about him? And how can they hear about him unless someone tells them? Unless someone opens their mouth and actually says, this is who Jesus is. Come and see. As simple as an invitation. Come and see. To come and see what God's doing. Come and see who I have found. Come and see this Jesus that I've been all about. All right, so I saw this here. Well, it's awesome because the truth is that our church, we've been growing and changing over the last year. I know that you're inviting people because we got 120 more people a week than what we used to have. So somebody's inviting somebody here. And so that's awesome. And I've seen that personally be witnessed and seen within our body. In fact, one of our young adults here at FCC kind of took this to heart and lived this out of this one at a time Jesus way. They just went to work. All right, just like many of us do, they went to work, and while they're at work, they made a friend. All right, and so they're at work, they make a friend, and so because you are a friend with someone, it made it seem like, hey, you know what? I want to invite them to come and see where I find hope, where I find joy, where I found love, where I find purpose. So they invited the friend to come and see what they were all involved with and where they had their friends, and it was actually what they called a small group. So one of our members here at the church, young adults, invites a friend at work to come to a small group, to come and see what transpires and takes place in a small group, where relationships happen, where they have conversations that are helpful and healthy, and where they talk about their purpose and talk about a bigger things in life. And it happened to be this small group was at Virgil and Barb's house, which I don't know if you ever met Virgil and Barb, but they're like a Venus flytrap of love. Like, you just get near them and it's like, bam! You know, it just got you, and you're just like, I can't get out. You're like, no, you can't get out now. There's too much love. You just can't do nothing about it. You're just drowning in the sea of loveliness. So that's just the way it is with Barb and Virgil. So she shows up at this house and then just, bam, just snapped, right? She's in now. Like, she's just loved to death. That's what she's going to be. And so what was cool about that is that, so an invitation of somebody here at the church makes a friend and goes, hey, come to our small group. They come to the small group and they come and see who Jesus is and what Jesus is all about. And then this new friend goes home and tells her mom, well, I've met this friend at work who invited me to this thing called small group, and we meet over there, and it's awesome. But as any good mom would look at that and go, I'm sorry, you met a friend at work, and now you just go up to some random dude's house, and y'all talking about, like, deep stuff? Like, what type of cult did you just get yourself into? Right? I mean, as any good mom, be like, what are y'all talking about over there? And who's all there? And what's this random Virgil dude? Like, tell me about this stuff. Like, he's a motorcycle rider, bald head. Like, I don't know about this, right? So, he said, being a good mom, she just moved to the area. And she's like, what did my daughter getting herself into? And so her mom said this. I talked to Lisa, her mom, and this is a quote from her. She said, my daughter, she started in this small group, and at first I was unsure what this was all about. She expressed that it was safe and not creepy at all, right? She said, still very concerning, since we just moved here, I'm not sure what she's getting involved with. Slowly, I, the mom, started meeting the young adults and Virgil and Barb. And guess what? It was truly love at first sight. Just wonderful, caring, loving people. And then my daughter invited me to come and see the church. So I came on Christmas Eve, and I fell in love with the church. And then she fell in love with Jesus. See, I got to meet Lisa before Christmas, and we prayed over her. It's some medical issues that were going on in the family, and Fortunately, by God's grace, she's going to be okay. But this Christmas Eve, I got to share the gospel. If you were here, I'm not sure if you were here or not, but over Christmas Eve, I got to share the good news, which starts out with bad news, right? Bad news is that we've sinned, and we've fallen short of the glory of God. And because of that, there's a chasm that was caused between us and God, that we couldn't walk in unity with Jesus anymore. And I'd shared a visual of this chasm that was caused, the separation that sin causes between us and God. And this chasm, a lot of times, I shared a partial built bridge, which was our good works. It's by grace you've been saved through faith, not of your own works, so no one can boast. So I shared that on Christmas Eve, and Lisa, who came to 101, looked at me as I was sitting at her table, and with tears in her eyes, she said, and she allowed me to say this, but she said, 55 years old, my whole life, I never knew I couldn't build my own bridge. A whole life spent of trying to work. And every time you made a bad decision, try to make a good decision to offset the bad decision. Every time you sin, you need to go serve, or you need to do something to balance out the equilibrium of evil and good, and trying to live life like this, and living your entire life, 55 years of living life like this, that all of a sudden come to the reality that you can't work your way there. But God, so rich in mercy, sent his son to be the bridge that we could never be. And that because of what Jesus did to divide that gap, that me and you could be in right standing with Jesus forever. And so if you're here today and you are a seeker like Lisa and you've been invited to be here, what we're telling you is that if you've come and sat down in this seat, if you accept that grace that Jesus gave, that is not because you're awesome, but because he's awesome. Live the life you couldn't live, the perfect spotless lamb. Die the death that me and you deserve. That Jesus did that for me and you, that if we would believe in him, turn from those sins, and accept his grace, that we get to move from this chair to this chair. And there's something good about this chair. This chair is a chair of forgiveness. This is a chair where you now get to be with Jesus forever. Not just now, but forevermore. That you can accept Jesus. And that is what Lisa did at 101. Here's a photo of Lisa and the Venus flytrap Virgil. That loved and led her in a prayer of belief, a prayer of surrender, a prayer of acceptance, a prayer of confession, a prayer of saying, God, I am yours and you are mine. It started with somebody who was here as a faithful member of the church, that was part of a small group, who decided, I'm going to make an invitation. I'm going to open my mouth. I'm going to invite you to come and see. And my challenge to you is, if you have people around you right now that they know you. They know your spouse's name. They know your kids or grandkids' name. They know what you do for a living, and they know the projects you have going on in the backyard. They know what job you have at your job. They know about you. They know whether you're a Ravens fan or whether you're not. They know about you, and they don't know who you claim and we claim to be your personal Lord and Savior, the Lord of your life, your King of Kings, your boss of bosses, the one you love more than anything else in life. Then maybe we're not doing it right. Maybe they need an invite. Maybe they need to come and see. And whether that's an invite to this gathering, whether it's an invite to a small group, whether it's an invite for dinner or lunch or coffee, but a chance for them to come, sit down in that first seat and see who this Jesus is. That we have the opportunity to make disciples. And it starts with an invitation.